Okay, we're continuing our work learning about quadratic equations. In this case, we're learning about three different ways to write a quadratic equation. There's the standard form, there's vertex form, and there's factored form. We've done a little bit of work with factored equations already, but we're going to take a look at not only features of each type of equation, standard, vertex, and factored, but we're also going to look at converting back and forth between one type and another type. So I want to just tell you kind of where we're going using a diagram, and this diagram is in the notes that I put together for this video. There are three types again. There's standard form, there's vertex form, there's factored form, and for each of these types I've listed the general idea of what it looks like, and then also I've listed an example of each type. Okay? And we'll go through and we're going to talk later about what the features of these three forms are and why you would write them in different forms. Some people get kind of bothered by that. And I just tell people, you know, there's different forms of bolts as well, depending on what you need to do. So we're going to look at these, but first I want to show you about converting between different types. And to do that, let's just point out, we're going to be talking about converting from vertex form to standard form and standard form to vertex form, from standard to factored and factored to standard. And in the notes there's examples in there showing exactly how to do that, but I want to show you live as well. Okay? So first thing we're going to do is look at these different forms, and we're going to convert different types. I'd like to start with an equation that's in vertex form, and we'll talk again soon about what it means to be in vertex form. But for right now, we're going to convert this to standard. So vertex, convert to standard. Okay? What we're going to do is first take that binomial and write it out this way, because it is squared. Okay? And previously you've done things where you've practiced squaring binomials. So I'm not going to take too much time explaining again, but I want to point out that with this binomial, you're going to get x squared minus 5x and minus 5x, so minus 10x, and then plus 25. Now notice that that whole thing is being multiplied by 3, so I'm going to put parentheses around it, put a 3 there, and then I'll have plus 7. So step 1 was to square the binomial. Step 2 is going to be used distributive property to multiply the 3 by each of these things in here, so 3x squared minus 30x and plus 75. That's 3 times each of those things. And then don't forget the plus 7 out the back here. Okay? So step 1 was to square the binomial. Step 2 is use the distributive property. And step 3 is we're going to combine these two things because they're both single numbers. They don't have x squared or x on them. So we'll end up with y equals 3x squared minus 30x plus 82. Okay? And you can see that looking at the different types, the equation was in standard form, was in vertex form. It had this x minus something squared and a number out front plus some other number, and we converted it into standard form. Okay? So we've practiced that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to convert it back. Okay? So we're going to take this equation right here, and we're going to convert it back. So I'm going to, over here on the next page, I'll write it y equals 3x squared minus 30x plus 82. Okay. Well, what you're going to learn about vertex form is that when it's all said and done, this number right here, this h, tells you where the parabola bottoms out. It's going to tell you the x-coordinate of where it bottoms out. And k tells you the y-coordinate of where it bottoms out. So the vertex is the very bottom of the parabola. Now, if the parabola happens to be upside down like this, then the vertex is the very top. Okay? But either way, h and k tell you where that point is. Okay? So we're going to be finding h and k for this equation, and then we'll use that to write the final form of the equation. So let's get rid of all that stuff here, so it's not in our way. So you will learn that h for this equation, or for any equation, is always found by taking the opposite of b divided by twice what a is. Now you might remember, this is b right here, the number in front of the x, and this, the b is right here, and this number right here is a. So in this case, we'll take the opposite of negative 30 divided by twice what a is. Okay. So that's going to be the opposite of negative 30 divided by 6. So it's the opposite of negative 5, otherwise known as 5. So all that tells us is that the vertex is at 5, comma, something. Okay? I don't know what the y-coordinate is yet, but I know that the x-coordinate is 5, comma, something, because the value of h is always the opposite of b divided by twice what a is. Now, how do you get what y is? Or, sorry, what the y-coordinate is? It's pretty easy. This formula right here tells you the y-coordinate when you know the x-coordinate. Okay? So what we'll do is just put a 5 in here for x in both places and calculate y. So here we go. Y is going to be 3 times 5 squared minus 30 times 5 plus 82. Okay? So this will work fairly nicely here. When it's all said and done, you just find the y-coordinate by just tossing the x-coordinate in for x in both places and calculate. This will be 3 times 25, or 75. This will be minus 150 plus 82. Okay. So 75 minus 150 is negative 75. Negative 75 plus 82 is 7. So we've now found out that the vertex is at 5, 7. Well, you might remember that in vertex form, that's the value of h and k. Okay. So our equation then is going to look like this. Y equals whatever a is, and we'll get to a in just a minute. Okay. X minus 5, because that's h, squared, plus 7. Okay. So we're essentially done. All we need to do is find out what a is. Okay. Again, we found out what h was, so it's x minus h squared, the quantity squared, plus k. We just need to find out what a is. And the nice thing is, a is the same a that was up here. So the equation is y equals 3x minus 5 squared plus 7. And if we look back at our original equation, that is what we started with. Right there. Okay. So we managed to convert from vertex form to standard form, vertex to standard, and then we converted from standard back to vertex. Oops, it's over here, sorry. Okay, I'm going to pause the video here and record a part 2, because this one's getting kind of long.